4:12 a.m. local time. A formation of 4 U.S. Army AH-64E Apache attack helicopters hovers at an altitude of 500 feet above the freezing surface of the Dasht-e Kavir desert. Their forward-looking infrared sensor suites are hard-locked onto a continuously moving target. A Karrar main battle tank brigade of the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) advancing at high speed below. 4 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles tear through the night. However, the American pilots clearly understand the parameters of this mission. This volley is not intended to kill. They are merely kinetic bait, a physical agent designed to push the steel monstrosities below into a pre-established geological equation. On the ground, the Iranian forces prove they are not passive targets. The Karrar Brigade maintains absolute discipline under strict radio silence. Their 1,000 horsepower V84 milliseconds diesel engines are wrapped in thermal shrouds, maximizing the suppression of infrared radiation. As the 4 Hellfire streaks descend, the Iranian air defense crews react with the precision of a machine. The accompanying Tor M1 air defense system flares its radar for exactly 3 seconds, a duration calculated just enough to unleash a cloud of interceptor munitions, shredding 2 Hellfires in midair. The 2 remaining Hellfires slip through the defensive net, plunging directly into the turrets of the 2 lead Karrars. But as the Mach 1.3 tandem-charged warhead detonates, generating a hypervelocity superplastic copper jet that collides with the target at 8,000 meters per second. Iran's next-generation Explosive Reactive Armor, AH, operates flawlessly. It triggers a directional counter-detonation, violently shearing the penetrating jet and fracturing its thermodynamic geometry. From within the rolling black smoke, the 50-tons chassis continue their forward surge. While the ERA successfully preserves the core crew compartment, the extreme concussive shockwave instantly degrades external optical sensors. Iran's ERA is not a passive shield. It is a reactive mathematical variable, pre-programmed to disrupt the Monroe effect from the sky. Recognizing their advantage, the Iranian commander immediately orders full throttle. The entire brigade pushes its velocity to the 60 km/h mark, expanding into a pincer geometry to counterattack the American helicopter squadron. Within the reference frame of a direct fire engagement, they are dictating the control. But that confidence is precisely the data point the Pentagon requires. Defeating an armored brigade through pure firepower is a highly inefficient resource attrition matrix. Therefore, 3 days prior, U.S. combat engineering units dispersed millions of super-absorbent hydrogel microparticles, optically camouflaged to match the sand across the entirety of this valley basin. Tonight, that invisible gel layer has absorbed the desert dew to full saturation. Deploying the Apache squadron as bait is fundamentally a tactical algorithm. Provoke the Iranian armored brigade, forcing the 50-ton steel masses to achieve maximum acceleration, thereby generating a mechanical shear stress that reaches the critical threshold upon the Earth's surface. The stillness of the night was rapidly shattered, and the battlefield equation instantly reversed. The Iranian Karrar Armored Brigade did not opt for a passive defense or evasive dispersion to preserve their mechanical assets. Instead, they established a reverse hunt, recognizing that the U.S. Army AH-64E Apache flight was hovering at the absolute limit of optical safety range. The Iranian brigade commander activated a full-scale counteroffensive, entirely shifting the reference frame of the air-to-ground engagement. From within the billowing clouds of multispectral camouflage smoke, the lead tank formation did not utilize conventional kinetic armor-piercing munitions. The heavy turrets rotated 180 degrees. Bypassing the mechanical limit of a 14-degree maximum gun elevation, the tank drivers deliberately accelerated their 50 tons chassis up the incline of a massive sand dune, utilizing the terrain's gradient as an artificial launch ramp. The 125mm smoothbore systems fired simultaneously, producing no ground-shaking mechanical recoil. The ordnance exiting the barrels was the Tandar laser-guided anti-tank missile ATGM system. 4 missiles tore through the airspace, riding the direct laser irradiation beam, surging upward at a velocity approaching Mach 2 to hunt down the American helicopters. This was not a doctrinal firing sequence. It was a precise spatial geometry calculation aimed at entirely stripping the adversary of their altitude advantage, converting the tanks into ad hoc air defense batteries. In almost the exact same millisecond, the electromagnetic grid below erupted again. The radar array of the Tor M1 defense complex completed its resynchronization cycle, and established a hard lock on the Apache, designated Raven 1. Inside the cockpit, the radar warning receiver, RWR, emitted continuous piercing tones, indicating a near-absolute probability of interception. Confronted with an engagement variable that exceeded the ballistic tolerance of the armor, the American pilot was forced to push the flight stick to its physical limit, compelling the $35 million machine into a sudden energy depletion maneuver. Massive salvos of flares were dispensed across the sky, scattering blocks of burning magnesium at 2,000 degrees Celsius to saturate the adversary's optical algorithm. The incoming air defense missile lost its target in the turbulence of the thermal band and bypassed Raven 1's tail rotor at a distance of less than 5 meters. Despite the lack of physical impact, the extreme pressure differential from the proximity shockwave completely fractured the reinforced glass surface of the cockpit canopy. Down on the ground, the Iranian brigade fully capitalized on this period of tactical attrition. The V-84 milliseconds diesel engines operated at maximum output, pushing the acceleration of dozens of 50-ton tanks to the 60 km/h mark. Their formation fanned out into a massive geometric pincer structure, relentlessly sweeping forward. By generating an overwhelming mobile kinetic wall, they directly pressured the U.S. reconnaissance flight to retreat and abandon the combat airspace. As the AH-64E Apaches banked sharply, utilizing the terrain's radar shadows to break the Tor M1's hardlock, they transitioned from weapons platforms to high-fidelity sensor nodes. While executing a high-G evasive turn, the flight lead, Raven 1, depresses the transmit-enable switch on the tactical console. This initiates a digital handshake, a high-bandwidth, encrypted data transfer protocol. Through the Link 16 network, the real-time spatial coordinates, velocity vectors, and mass density estimates of the Iranian Karrar brigade are injected directly into the fire control computers of a M109A 7 Paladin self-propelled howitzer battalion. Positioned 40 kilometers away, concealed behind the salt-crusted ridges of the desert, these artillery assets receive the target package without ever radiating an active signal. The kill chain is no longer a matter of visual line of sight. It has become a distributed mathematical proof. Exactly 60 seconds after the handoff, the atmosphere above the valley fractures under the weight of 12 155mm Excalibur GPS-guided projectiles. However, the ballistic trajectory of these $100,000 munitions does not terminate on the lead vehicles. Instead, the shells impact the unoccupied sand grids immediately surrounding the Iranian formation. Plumes of desert soil and frozen dust erupt in a precise geometric pattern, appearing to the Iranian tactical displays as a systemic failure of precision guidance. Beneath the reinforced armor of his command vehicle, the Iranian brigade commander observes the impacts. His internal logic identifies these misses as a result of successful electronic jamming or terminal guidance drift. In his reference frame, the American artillery is failing. However, the misses are not errors. They are the calibration of a seismic trigger. The tactical provocation has achieved its primary mechanical objective. By forcing the Karrar brigade to maintain a sustained velocity of 60 km/h, the U.S. engineers have locked the 50-ton machines into a specific vibration frequency. The rapid, rhythmic oscillation of dozens of heavy steel tracks against the desert floor, carrying a cumulative weight of hundreds of tons, generates a sustained mechanical resonance of 15 Hz. As the 12 Excalibur rounds detonate beneath the surface, they are not configured for kinetic fragmentation or thermal yield. They are deployed as seismic shockwaves. The intersection of the 15 Hz mechanical resonance from the tanks and the subterranean shockwaves from the artillery creates a state of constructive interference. This concentrated energy surge serves as the seismic catalyst, a physical hammer blow that shatters the surface tension of millions of optically camouflaged hydrogel microparticles. These particles, having spent the last 72 hours saturating themselves with desert dew, are now ready to rewrite the structural integrity of the ground itself. Within a fraction of a heartbeat, the super-absorbent hydrogel microparticles, now fully energized by the seismic catalyst, execute their primary function. The moisture absorbed from the desert dew is forcefully released, saturating the surrounding sand grains and neutralizing the inner particle friction that provides the ground its load-bearing capacity. The 50-ton mechanical entities of the Iranian brigade instantly lose their gravitational equilibrium. Without a solid foundation to provide reactive force, the Karrar tanks begin a terminal vertical descent, sinking into the earth at an uncontrollable rate as the ground refuses to support their mass. Inside the pressurized hulls of the Iranian tanks, the crews react according to primary survival doctrine. Observing the rapid immersion of their chassis, the drivers depress the throttles to the firewall, attempting to utilize the sheer output of their engines to power out of the bog. However, they are defeated by the rheological reality of a thixotropic fluid environment. In this engineered non-Newtonian medium, the relationship between applied force and resistance is inversely proportional. The more violently the steel tracks churn against the sludge, the lower the shear strength of the ground becomes, effectively dropping the medium's viscosity to near zero in a feedback loop of total traction loss. Instead of generating forward momentum, the maximum acceleration of the tracks serves only to accelerate the liquefaction of the remaining structural support. The brigade is mathematically compelled to dig its own mass grave, sinking 3 times faster than if the engines had remained at idle. The systemic collapse extends to the brigade's defensive umbrella. The TOR M1 air defense system, which minutes prior had functioned as an apex interceptor, is rendered functionally obsolete as it sustains a 45-degree tilt. The stabilization gyroscopes exceed their operational tolerances, and the missile launch rails become physically jammed against the encroaching sludge. The electronic eyes of the radar are forced to stare into the sand, unable to acquire the aerial threats they were designed to kill. The terminal stage of the engagement is defined by mechanical asphyxiation. As the mud and hydrogel mixture rises above the fenders, it breaches the thermal shrouds and enters the primary air intakes of the 1,000 horsepower V84 milliseconds diesel engines. High-performance internal combustion requires a precise oxygen-to-fuel ratio. Tonight, that ratio is replaced by a dense, abrasive liquid. Inside the cylinders, the pistons attempt to compress an incompressible medium, leading to hydrolock and systemic structural failure. The muffled, rhythmic thumping echoing from beneath the surface is the sound of piston rods snapping and engine blocks fracturing under reverse detonation. The elite armored wing of the IRGC is not neutralized by penetrator rounds or thermal warheads. They are extinguished by the weight of their own hardware and the distortion of frictional laws. Explosive Reactive Armor, ERA, provides a state of near immortality against kinetic projectiles from the sky. Yet it possesses a zero-value utility when the ground beneath your feet revokes its permission for you to exist. The Dasht-e Kavir has been converted into a rheological equation with no possible solution, and the Iranian brigade has become the first set of variables to be systemically deleted. The Iranian Karrar brigade demonstrated high-tiered tactical competence, executing every doctrinal maneuver to preserve their assets and repel an advanced aerial threat. Their armored systems function within design parameters, and their reverse hunt strategy successfully achieved its spatial objectives. Yet, they were defeated by a variable that was not accounted for in their defensive algorithm: the structural permission of the ground itself. Tactical excellence is neutralized when the theater of war transitions from a ballistic engagement to a geomechanical audit. The expenditure of 12 Excalibur rounds was not an act of aggression against steel, but a precision investment in a subterranean phase shift. By weaponizing the enemy's own 50-ton mass and the rhythmic resonance of their acceleration, the operation proved that the most efficient way to destroy a mobile fortress is to overwrite the physics, allowing it to stand. Strategic maneuvers become mathematically void when the laws of friction are manipulated to ensure a terminal descent. The brigade was not neutralized by firepower. It was systemically erased by a rheological equation that offered no possible solution. If you want to track the mathematical shifts and the complex physics defining modern warfare, subscribe to Military Calculus. Understand the variables that are rewriting history. Goodbye.